plant nomenclature, that is the naming of plants. How do we name the plants and their different categories, ranks, genera, species? So this is the topic which we shall discuss today. Nomenclature means naming the plants, and nomenclature is a precise and simple system used by botanists that deals with terms denoting the ranks of taxonomic groups. For example, if you take the example of Pisum sativum, this name has been given for P, that's the plant of Papilionaceae family. Pisum is the genus, sativum is the species. So it's a rank or a taxon. Taxon means a unit of the taxonomy or unit of classification. So scientific name of a taxon is a word of a combination of words by which it is known. For example, we have a combination of two epithets or two words which we call, for example, if we take the name of a species, we have a genus and then we have a species, Pisum and sativum. These are the two words which have been taken together as a name of a species. And the most important thing is a plant name which is named botanically, or the botanical name or the plant name of a species, it is, and even the other ranks also, like we can say phylum, division, class, order, suborder, family, subfamily, tribe, these things. So these are always internationally known. You can say name of a plant or its taxon, it is always named in the same way, or this name is applicable throughout the world. So names are always international. What is the meaning of naming the plants? We should know about it, because we know the world or earth is full of a vast diversity of plant species, and different taxa are there. So by naming the plants, we can know the diversity of the plants all over the world, all over the surface of the earth. So this is very important. Unless if you do not name the species, you do not name the gender, do not name the families and their higher groups, we cannot know the vast diversity of the plant kingdom. So this is required very urgently. Then another thing is, similarly we can say by naming the plants, we can also classify their groups or their ranks or taxa. This is also very important. So because of this, we need the naming the plants. Then the most important thing is, what is the language in which we name the plants? And we all know Latin is the language which is the basic language used for naming the plants. This is very important here. Latin is the language. And this is why Latin? The question is why Latin is used as a basic language for nomenclature of plants or naming the plants. We know most of the earliest literature in botany was written in Latin language. This is the main reason behind this. That's why Latin is used as a basic language for nomenclature. Rather we can say the names of all ranks or categories or taxa, or rather we can say genera and species, subspecies, varieties and so on. They all are written or we can say used in Latin language. Certain British workers raised objections against the use of Latin. They said Latin is a very difficult language to pronounce. Sometimes the words are so complicated that they are difficult to pronounce. They said, why don't we use the English names? But actually English name, this concept was later on, this idea was later on rejected on the ground that first of all, the English was not the earliest language of botanical literature or literature in botany in the ancient times, and similarly there are some confusing names in English, because sometimes we say one species has got many English names. So which name should we follow for that particular species? Another thing is we can say many species sometimes have the same English name. So this is again confusing. And rather we can say most important we can say reason is Latin is the earliest language of plant literature in botany or literature in botany. How the plant naming started? What is the beginning of the plant naming? We should have some names. There are two most important names in the plant naming system, Duchenne. One name is of Caspar Boyne and another name is of Linnaeus. We know all very well. Linnaeus actually is not the founder of binomial nomenclature, which generally we say. It is the name of the Caspar Boyne, who in 1623 in his book, the book is Pinex, where he led the foundation of binomial naming of plants. He gave this concept that when a plant name should consist of two words or two epithets, genus and species. So this is called two naming system of each species, which is called binomial system of naming. This was coined, or rather we can say given for the first time by Caspar Boyne, but Linnaeus actually adopted this binomial system, and he used so many binomial names in his book. This is called Species Plantarum, or written by Linnaeus in 1753. This is a very important book, as well as the year also is important, because from 1753 we take the beginning of the naming of plants, particularly of vascular plants. Then certain rules of botanical naming, they were also given by Linnaeus in his books like Critica Botanica, which was published in 1737, and Philosophia Botanica in 1751. So this is the beginning of the nomenclature, binomial naming particularly. Then similarly, what were the first rules? We know Linnaeus gave certain concepts of rules for the plant naming in his books, but there were some well-defined rules were made by two authors. One is Augustin de Candolle. In his book Theorie Elementaire de la Botanique, he proposed certain ideas or fundamentals or certain rules which were first in the history of plant naming. This was also the beginning of the rules of the plant nomenclature after Linnaeus. And then the most important is Alphonse de Candolle. His we can say his book is called Loi de la Nomenclature Botanica, that is Laws of the Botanical Nomenclature. We can write this in English this way. Whereas the Augustin de Candolle's book can be written as Elementary Theory of the Botany. But Alphonse de Candolle's book Loi de la Nomenclature Botanica gave certain rules of nomenclature, and this is actually foundation for the first International Botanical Code that was given. If you come to the history, that is the part of the history again. The history of the nomenclature starts with the International Botanical Congresses. We know there were the books of Candolle and Linnaeus earlier to these conferences or congresses. So there is the name of the International Botanical Congresses, or in short we can call it IBC. The first three congresses, after each 5 or 6 years, one International Botanical Congress is held in any part of the world, and this is controlled by the International Society of Plant Nomenclature and Taxonomy, which is in Netherlands. And this society organizes these congresses, and then in each congress rules of botanical nomenclature are framed and discussed and passed by the convention. So there are first three congresses are important in the history of botanical nomenclature. The first International Botanical Congress was held in Paris in 1867, and in this congress two important rules were passed. The first was principle of priority, and the second was author's citation. These were the two. That is, we shall discuss later on what is the meaning of these things. The second International Botanical Congress, which was held in Rochester in 1892, this was also important because two important rules were passed by this congress. The first is concept of types and acceptance of all binomials. This is also, we can say, starting of the International Botanical Code, because the rules passed by the first International Botanical Congress, they are known as the first edition of the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, we can also call it. And simply we can also call it as Paris Code. Similarly, by Rochester, it was passed as Rochester edition of the Botanical Code. The third Congress, this is also very important from the historical point of view, that was held in Vienna in 1905. Here so many things were passed, particularly if you take the example of Linnaeus. The books of Linnaeus, they were given importance in this conference, and we can say no doubt we know that the works of Linnaeus, they were given importance in this congress, not in the first and second, because the works of Linnaeus, they were produced in 18th century, they were written in 18th century, 1730s, 1750s, mostly 1730s and 1750s. So the first rule passed in this congress was that was the, we can say, the basis of the Vienna edition of the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. So there was a Linnaeus, the work of Linnaeus called works called Species Plantarum. This was regarded as, or this was established as, the starting point of nomenclature for vascular plants. Then another important decision taken by this congress was the acceptance of descriptions of genera as given in Genera Plantarum of Linnaeus. So the two books of Linnaeus, Specie Plantarum and Genera Plantarum, written by Linnaeus, they were given importance and they were followed as such for naming the plants. And the third important aspect was, before this Congress, the tautonymous names, we can say like Phagopyrum, Phagopyrum. Tautonymous name is a such name, tautonymous name or tautonym is such name of a plant where the generic and specific name or the name of a genus and species are exactly similar. We can say they follow in toto. The species name follows the genus in toto, or rather we can say they have the similar spellings. Such names are called tautonyms. Before Vienna Congress, they were regarded as accepted names, but in Vienna Congress they were rejected. So tautonymous names are no doubt accepted these days. And another important decision taken by this Congress was, that is, latent diagnosis was regarded as a compulsory requirement for new names, for new plant names. Latent diagnosis का मतलब होता है latent description. So latent description was regarded as the most important condition for new names. Now we come to the rules. I told you that the beginning of the nomenclature rules was with these first three congresses, then fourth, fifth and so on. So many congresses have been held and they have been given, all the rules of nomenclature have been given in ICBN, which we call International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, which is published and edited after each International Botanical Congress. This code is like a constitution, we can say, for plant naming, and this code is divided into three divisions, and each division is further divided into chapters, sections and articles. Now we shall take certain rules which are in the syllabus of the undergraduate courses in most of the universities. The first important rule is the principle of priority, as the name indicates. Priority means on the basis of first published name. Taxon, I told you, taxon is a category or a rank of a classification. So it may be division, phylum, or rather we can say class, order, family, subfamily, genus, subgenus, species, subspecies, variety, and so on. So each taxon with a given circumscription, taxonomic position, its details and its position in the classification, and rank, that is whether it's a genus, whether it's a family or an order, it can bear. So this taxon, each taxon can have or can bear only one valid name, the earliest that is in accordance with the rules of nomenclature. The example is here. If a species, for example, if we take the name of a species, it can be applicable for genera and also for other categories of nomenclature or the plant kingdom. If a species has been named by three different botanists, suppose one botanist named a species in 1876, he gave this name, a name for a particular species, and the same species was named by another botanist in 1895, and a third botanist named the same species in 1916. So here the principle of priority applies, because these three authors, or it may be the same author for two, these may be different authors for all the three, because they do not know that this is the same species, and similarly they do not know that this species has been named earlier by some other botanists in any part of the world. So this is very important. So if we say, for example, these three names, these are actually for the same species in different years. So whose name should be considered as a valid name. So for these things we see whether the rules of botanical nomenclature are applicable to these, whether all the rules apply to these. And suppose we can say all these three names given for the same species are given according to the rules, but the principle of priority, according to the principle of priority, the name published first, rather we can say the name published prior most in 1876, it will be considered as its valid name. So this is called the principle of priority, and these two names published in 1895 and 1916, they will be called synonyms of this particular species. They will not be called the valid names. Another important rules, set of rules has been given for type method. Type is a specimen. It is usually a herbarium specimen, and the type is also called nomenclature type, because this is the specimen on which the name of a particular species is based. So when an author names a particular species, he also makes a specimen and says this is the type of this particular species, and I have named this species on the basis of this specimen. So this is deposited in any herbarium, and this is actually used for a reference. So they are always deposited in any herbarium of the world, and they are used as reference for naming, for checking the names, and for reference by other workers. There are different kinds of types. The type specimens which are in the form of herbarium specimens, there are different kinds. These kinds we shall take one by one. The first kind of type is called holotype. Holotype is a specimen. This is always one specimen, and this is used by the author, and this is also designated by him as a nomenclature type. Rather, we can say this is the main type specimen of a species on which the name of that species is based, and this has been marked by the author as the main type. So this is called a holotype. So these types are always deposited in any part of any herbarium of the world. Another kind is paratype. A specimen, suppose we can say this is other than the holotype. Suppose the author says this is a type specimen and the mean type, and he says that this is and he gives and he cites the original description of this specimen or this type, text this with the type specimen. This becomes this type is now not holotype. This becomes now paratype. Then similarly, suppose an author makes a holotype or mean type in one herbarium. Suppose here's the choice. He wants to make duplicate copies of this holotype, but duplicate of holotype will never be called holotype. Holotype is always one. Suppose he wants, a British worker keeps a holotype of a specimen in the herbarium at Q. He wants that I want to give a duplicate specimen of this type to a herbarium in Germany or to America or some other country or some herbarium of the world. So a duplicate of holotype is always called isotype. So this is other than holotype. Holotype is always one. You cannot say there are 4 holotypes. Holotype is always one. That is the main type or main nomenclature type specimen. Now another condition is another kind of type is called syntype. Syntype means when author could not designate the main type, that is the holotype. When author could not designate the holotype and he made more than one specimen and said these are the type specimens, but anyhow he could not point out which is the main type. So suppose this is the condition, the author is not, suppose the author is no more, we cannot ask the author which is, tell us that which is the main type or the holotype. So in this case, in the absence of holotype, these all types are considered syntype. Otherwise, if among these syntypes there would have been one holotype, then others would be called isotypes. So syntypes is the condition where all the types are similar nature and there is no marking for the holotype. So all such types are called syntypes. There are 2 more types. These are main types. There are some more types also other than these 6. But lectotype, as the name indicates, lactose means mother material. Actually, suppose holotype is not available there, or holotype is missing or destroyed. Holotype is missing or destroyed. So what happens? We come to know that the original material from which the author made the holotype, and we can select the new type specimen, which is called the holotype. So this is very important case. But the condition is the material should be original on which the author worked and from which the author made the holotype. But anyway, that holotype is not available now. This is missing, or this is destroyed. Then there is new type. Suppose the holotype, isotype, syntype, and even the original material from which we could make the lectotype. These things are not available, and author is also no more. We cannot ask the author to make a new type specimen. Then any specimen, new specimen, can be selected for that particular name, for that particular species, and now this is called as its type. So this is called neotype. Neotype means new type specimen. This can be designated, this can be made by any worker, any botanist, in the essence of the author, because we do not have the holotype, isotypes, syntypes, and even the original material. If the original material would have been there, we could have made the lectotype. But when the material is also not available, all the material regarding holotype and other types are missing or destroyed, and original material not available, then there is always a new type material that is called neotype. Now we come to the valid publications. That is in the code there are many we can say sections dealing with the validity of publication. Publication means any article or research paper or a description of a plant published in any flora, any book of taxonomic importance, taxonomic monograph, taxonomic revision, and some journal of botany or taxonomy. So there we can publish the name of a particular species and ideas about it. So these are called valid publications. If it is published in accordance with the rules of, in accordance with the botanical code or the rules given in the botanical code, this is called a valid publication. If it is not, if the author did not follow these rules and he has published he has made the publication, he has published the new name, this will be not called a valid name. So the first thing is names of taxa. Taxa means, I told you, taxa means different kinds of taxon. Taxa is the singular, taxa plural. So taxa may be, it may be any kind of rank, it can be any kind of category. So we can have different kinds of ranks or taxa. Suppose we have the rank, and then each rank should be followed in the last, which is called suffix or ending. It means, suppose we have got the division. So division should always be, division should always end in phyta. That is, the suffix should be phyta. For example, we can say Thallophyta, we can say Magnoliophyta, this way we can call. Subdivision should always have the ending or suffix in phytina, and class should have always should end in Opsida, for example Liliopsida, Magnoliopsida, and so on. And similarly, subclass always ends in Opsidae, and order always ends in, should always end in ales according to the botanical code of nomenclature, like we can say Roseales, Liliales, Asterales, and so on. And suborder always ends in ine. So these are the endings or suffix for the taxa above the rank of family. Now in case of families, family rank, the suffix is always, should always be AC, ACEAE in the ending of each family. For example, Ranunculaceae, Magnoliaceae, Poaceae, Acanthaceae, Scrofulaceae, and so on. Each family should always end in ACEA, AC. So this is the condition here. Subfamily should always end in oide, like we can say Lilioideae and so on, Lorenthoideae and so on. And tribe under the family or under subfamily should always end in EAE, and subtype should always end in INI. So these are the suffixes used for the families to subtypes. There are some families, there are some exceptions here. Some families do not have suffix like AC, suffix or ending AC. So these families, the code recognizes these names also, which do not have the ending in AC. They are called alternate names. They have been given, these are called alternate names. They have also been, they are not rejected, they are called alternate names. But the names of such families have been provided which have the suffix AC or ending AC. So for example, if you take the cruciferi is the previous name, or rather we can say this is called alternate name of Brassicaceae, because it's the Brassicaceae and after Brassica. Umbelliferi has got the name ending with AC or suffix AC, Poaceae, Levity as Lamiaceae, Compositae as Asteraceae, Gramineae as Poaceae. I want to tell you one thing, that is, we can say, for example, if you take the name of a family, or name of a rank above the rank of a family, suppose we say Magnoliophyta. So Magnoliophyta should always come, the name should come from one of its class, for example Magnoliopsida. So name of a rank should be taken from any one of its ranks below it, immediately below it. This is the important thing. Like a family, for example, the name of Brassicaceae, it is taken from one of its genera called Brassica. Similarly, the name of Compositae or Asteraceae has been taken from one of its genera called Aster. Similarly, Gramineae or Poaceae is taken, the name is taken from one of its genera, Poa. So this way we can say from the lower category or from the lower rank we take one, and then from this we make the name of that particular taxon. This is very important aspect. Then below family rank we have got the genera and species and subgenera also we can call. Names of genera, subgenera, genus, subgenus, section. So for these ends we have got the endings in US, ending in A, ending in UM, ending in ES, ending in OM, so on. And the name of a genus is always started with a capital letter or capital initial is there. The name can be taken from any word, but this should always be in Latin. We know Latin is the basic language for naming. So they are named after patterns of our botany. For example, after Bohin, we have taken Bohinia. It can be taken feature of a plant. It can be taken from place of its origin and place of the name of a person. It can be taken from any word, but that should be either in Latin or it may be Latinized form of other word. This is a very important aspect. Then similarly for names of species, we can say species and below it. The species also takes from the, it starts with a small letter or it has a small initial, but in the genus we always use the capital initial. Similarly, in case of species, the name can be taken after any character of any person or any pattern of botany or any person. Like Bentham, we can say any species, if the species is named after Bentham, it may be Benthami, or it may be, and similarly, for example, if we take after Clark, we can say Clarkii, we can say Clarkiana, that is according to the nature. For example, Alba species, Alba is for white color, Indica means it is for Indian origin. Fragrance, koi species, suppose this is named after fragrance means it's we can say it has got some perfume like nature, so it is fragrance. So this we can name. Then other conditions of valid publication are, the first condition is after the names of taxa there is effective publication. That is, any publication will be called effective. Any publication will be called effective, that is effected or that is made by distribution, of printed matter by any means. For example, by sale, by exchange, by any kind of exchange, we can use the printed matter, but this always be printed. Before, actually in earlier times, printed matter was not there, they were exchanged by herbarium sheets. Nowadays this is no longer a effective publication unless it is published in some journal or flora or a monograph. Second, another condition for valid publication is called latent description. When a new species is named, so this should always be provided with the latent description. That is, we can say description of that particular plant in Latin language. This is a very important condition. Suppose the author doesn't know the Latin language, he will have to get the description translated in Latin, then he will have to publish it. Otherwise, it will not be accepted in any other language. If he publishes in other language other than Latin, it will not be a valid publication. It will be rejected and it will be called invalid. Similarly, when a new name is given, a new name of a plant is given, then a plate or figure is should be there. The description or figure showing the essential character, that is also important condition. Then another important condition for valid publication is called citation of author's names. Citation means we have to cite the name of the author or authors with the name of taxa, whether it's a order, it's a class, it's a family, or whether it's a species, subspecies, or genus, subgenus, and so on. So the name of each taxon or names of all taxa should be followed. Rather, we can say they should have citation with that name, the name of that particular name, and by the citation of the author's name, and the author's names are always cited in short form or in abbreviation. So this is called author citation. For example, Liliaceae is there. Liliaceae is a taxon. We can say the name of a family is Liliaceae. After Liliaceae, we shall write the name of the author who has named Liliaceae. So it is the Adamson. Adamson named the family Liliaceae. So we write the complete name of Liliaceae will be Liliaceae Adamson. In short, Adams. Usually in short we write. Similarly, the genus Lilium, that is the genus of Liliaceae family. Lilium genus was named by Linnaeus. So we write Lilium Lin, or sometimes we also write Lin dot, and sometimes we write L dot for Linnaeus in short. Similarly, any species, for example, we name the species of Lilium known as Lilium superbum. We know this superbum is also given by Linnaeus. So we write Lilium superbum Lin dot, that is in short. Dot means it is an abbreviation. Similarly, a species of Solanum indicum, this was given by Linnaeus. So this is called Solanum indicum Lin. And Polygonum, a species of Polygonum known as Alatum, this was given by Buchanan and Hamilton. So we write Buchanan and Hamilton, so short in Bookham. So Polygonum Alatum Bookham. And similarly, a species of Vernonia, this is a genus of Compositae, it's a species Cyaneria. This has been given by two authors here, Linnaeus and Lesser. So actually Lin and Less we write, because there is something, because there may be this Cyaneria must have come from other genus, so the name of Linnaeus goes inside. Originally this name was given by Linnaeus, but this species was transferred from any other genus to Veronica by Less. So the name of Less is also there. So citation of all authors is there, whether it's one author, two authors, or more than two authors. So we can write all the names of these authors in short. Then in the last section of this lecture, we come to the conserved names. Conserved names means actually what happens. Suppose a name of a family or a taxon or usually the conserved names are given for two categories, families and genera. Suppose a name of a family, for example, Ranunculata. This is in used for a very long time. We are using Ranunculata family. This has got these many genera, these many species. Suppose one day some author says, some botanist says that the name Ranunculata was not given, was not published according to the rules of nomenclature, and this should be rejected. He says, he gives this kind of proposal for publication. So what will happen? Suppose Ranunculata was not published according to the rules in those days, according to botanical rules or botanical code rules in those days. So what will happen? Now somebody says this Ranunculata is invalid, so he will have to give a new name for that family. This will make confusion and difficulty in naming the names, naming the families. So the code has given the provision to conserve these names. Suppose any name, I gave it example Ranunculata. So suppose Ranunculata name has been published according to the rules those days or not according to those rules, not according to the rules of botanical nomenclature in those days. So there is the provision of conserving these names so that nobody or no botanist can change the names of such families and genera later on, because they have been in practice and used in literature for a very long period. If we change them, so what will happen? Confusion will start. So to protect or to we can say to avoid this confusion, to avoid this practice, certain names of certain families and genera, they have been conserved. So they are called nomina conservanda. That is, in English we can call conserved names, and this is applicable for families and genera. So certain they name certain families and genera which are used for a long time. It's not a long, it's for a long time. So these names have been conserved or protected by the botanical code, whereas the rules of nomenclature are there. Again, change in them so that nobody can change them. These names are called conserved names or nomina conservanda. We know nomina conservanda are of two types. I told you, the families and genera. So the conserved names of families are called nomina familiarum conservanda. That is, the names of conserved names of families. So conserved names of families are called nomina familiarum conservanda. We can say, for example, Acanthaceae, there are so many, about we can say almost most of the families of the plant kingdom, rather we can say angiosperm, they are now in the conserved list. So Acanthaceae, examples are Acanthaceae, Amaranthaceae, Convolvulaceae, Asteraceae, Papilionaceae, Chelpinaceae, Solanaceae, Ranunculaceae, Malvaceae, Orchidaceae, Euphorbiaceae, and so on. These are the examples. Most of the families, rather we can say more than 300 families have been conserved nowadays in the code. So what happens now? Because nobody can change these names nowadays by citing any rule of the botanical code, by citing any region. So they are given the, like we can say, they have been given the veto power, and nobody can change them. If they have been named not in accordance with the code, still they will remain the same. They will not be changed. So they are called conserved names for the family. Similarly, we have the conserved names of genera, which were called nomina generica conservanda. So similarly, for the genera also, many genera have been conserved. We know, I told you that to avoid the confusion of changing names, it happens many times. So to avoid the continuous change of genera or a genus which was in use for a very long time, so that should be given conservation or protection against the change. So botanical code gives them protection against change or against changing in them, so that confusion does not arise in future. So there are so many genera which have been conserved in the nomina genetica conservanda list. So here we have the Butea, Dalbergia, Tectona, Hibiscus, Loranthus, Citeria, Digitaria, Dendrobium, it's an orchid, Hyptis, Colocasia, Terminalia, Nymphea, Bougainvillea, and so on. There are so many examples, hundreds of genera, they have also been conserved. That means these names of these genera cannot be changed by applying any rule of the botanical nomenclature. So this is the end of the, we have taken the certain rules in the historical point. We know if you go into the beginning, I said that it started with certain rules and certain international botanical congresses, first, second and third, the works of Linnea, the works of Decandolle, and the binomial system of naming, they were started. Then the rules of principle of priority, the type concept or type method, and then the requirement for valid publication and conserved names. These are the main points in the essential points to be learned for naming the plants. But again, say, how do we know? I want to tell you one thing: the plant names are independent of animal names or zoological names. You should know this thing. Suppose Butea monosperma is a name. Suppose in, for example, it is not there. For example, some animal is named after as Butea monosperma. So this will nobody will say that the Butea monosperma is the name of a animal. So we cannot name this. We cannot give this name to a plant. So in existence, we do not have similar names for plants and animals. If it happens to be sometimes a name of a genus or a species matches, or we can say this is similar to a zoological name of the name of an animal, it has nothing to do with the plant names. So plant names and zoological names, botanical names and zoological names, you can say names of plants and the names of animals are independent. They have nothing to do because the codes of nomenclature are entirely different for both animals and plants. That's all. Thank you very much.